Players often face fines of $25,000 or $50,000, but it's rare for someone to be hit with fines in the millions. Investors, like fans, can get caught up in team rivalries. But Mark Stevens took his resentment to another level. He faced substantial financial penalties. Mark Stevens was a small investor in the Golden State basketball team when they played against the Raptors in the 2019 finals. During Game 3, he sat close to the court and got involved in a dispute with player Kyle Lowry. When Lowry leaped into the crowd while chasing a loose ball, it's a common occurrence in live basketball games. Fans are usually warned about such situations when sitting near the court. However, Stevens didn't find it amusing. When Lowry ended up in his section, trying to get back on the court, Stevens shouted some not-so-nice words at him. Lowry, understandably upset, shouted back, trying to alert the referees. Surprisingly, no action was taken against Stevens during the game. It was only afterward that a penalty was imposed. As an executive, Stevens was fined a hefty $500,000 and banned from attending any NBA games for a year. Notably, Golden State coach Steve Kerr and basketball icon LeBron James supported Lowry, with James even posting about the incident on Instagram shortly after it occurred. Lowry was really upset about what happened, and he wanted a stricter punishment. Stevens apologized officially to Lowry, saying, "I messed up at the NBA Finals last night, and I feel really embarrassed about it. What I did was wrong, and there's no excuse. Mr. Lowry deserves better, and I tried to say sorry directly to him and others from the Raptors and Warriors. I appreciate those who took my calls. Mr. Lowry knows that my actions last night don't show who I really am. I made a mistake, and I'm truly sorry. I need to do better, and I'm committed to making things right." Not many people know that NBA players have to stay healthy as part of their contracts. What's surprising is that if a player knowingly risks their health by doing something dangerous, they can be fined. A notable example of this happened with the Lakers in 2007. In the 2005 to 2006 basketball season, the Lakers added Vladimir Radmanovic as a forward to their team. Unfortunately, he got injured in the following season. At first, he told the Lakers that he slipped on ice in Utah during the All-Star break, but later he admitted the truth. The injury occurred while he was snowboarding, leading to a shoulder injury that sidelined him for 2 months. The Lakers didn't take this lightly and fined him $500,000, which was around 10% of his $5.2 million contract. Lakers executives explained that they had considered various disciplinary actions internally and believed the fine was the fairest. They considered the matter closed and looked forward to Radmanovic returning to the game to contribute to the team. Radmanovic, realizing he was in the wrong, publicly apologized for his actions. It turned out the injury wasn't a surprise to some, as it was discovered he had never been snowboarding before. Given the severity of the situation, Radmanovic acknowledged he was fortunate that the Lakers didn't void his 5-year, $30 million contract. Dallas Mavericks owner and Shark Tank investor Mark Cuban faced a hefty fine following controversial remark he made during a conversation on Julius Erving's podcast. This incident marked just one in a series of fines for Cuban, whose total fines exceeded $2 million since taking ownership of the Mavericks in 2000. The podcast discussion centered around the contentious practice of tanking in the NBA. Tanking involves teams intentionally losing games during the season to improve their chances of securing top picks in the NBA draft lottery, which is awarded to teams with the poorest records. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver had a zero-tolerance stance on tanking, making it a serious violation. Cuban, seemingly indifferent to potential consequences, revealed on the podcast, "I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I just had dinner with a bunch of our guys the other night, and here we are, we weren't competing for the playoffs. I was like, look, losing is our best option." He further explained his approach, stating, "I don't hate hearing that, but I at least sat down and explained it to them. I explained what our plan was going to be this summer. Now we're not going to tank again." At the time of Cuban's remarks, the Mavericks were struggling with the third worst record in the NBA, a dismal 18 wins out of 40 games. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver responded swiftly, imposing a substantial $600,000 fine on Cuban, citing the comments as a public statement detrimental to the league. In 2014, there was a big problem involving Donald Sterling. He had a private conversation with his girlfriend, Vanessa, which got out to the public. This caused a lot of trouble because he said some racist things. The talk happened in 2013 after Vanessa posted a photo on Instagram with Magic Johnson, a famous basketball player. Sterling didn't like that Vanessa was showing her connection with black people. He told her not to bring black people to the basketball games, even though she could hang out with them or do whatever else. When this conversation became known, it caused a huge media storm. TMZ, a celebrity news outlet, spread the news, and many famous people, including former President Obama, didn't like what Sterling said. Obama suggested that sometimes it's best to let ignorant people talk and reveal their ignorance. Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, also thought Sterling's comments were very bad. He agreed with the fans and the president. Silver believed that Sterling should be punished. He said the investigation showed that the voice on the recordings was indeed Sterling's, and the hateful feelings were his. Silver wanted the team, the Clippers, to be sold because of Sterling's ownership. He promised to do everything he could to make it happen. Silver effectively convinced the board that fairness prevailed, but Sterling faced severe consequences, including a hefty $2.5 million fine, a lifetime bans from attending any NBA game, and the removal of all ownership stakes, compelling him to sell the team. In response, Sterling attempted a lawsuit against the commissioner and the league, which ultimately failed and resulted in him losing control over financial decisions. This led to his wife stepping in to negotiate the sale of the team, ultimately fetching $2 billion. In a different incident, former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer, who is now the owner of the Miami Heat, faced a significant fine for comments made during the 2011 NBA lockout. Amid the lockout, when discussions between league owners and players were sensitive, Ballmer chose to share updates on Twitter. Responding to a fan's criticism about NBA owners and players allegedly not caring about fans, Ballmer stated, "You're barking at the wrong owner," suggesting that some owners might not prioritize fans, but he was an exception. Understanding what he meant, Arison deleted the tweet within an hour of posting it. Unfortunately, the harm was already done, and it was spreading quickly. NBA executives were very angry. When someone else asked Arison about his thoughts on Donald Sterling, he just replied with a simple LOL. To be fair, that tweet turned out to be accurate, considering Sterling was later exposed as a racist. In response, Adam Silver fined Arison $500,000, the highest fine ever given to a team owner for such comments. Just a few months earlier, Michael Jordan, then the owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, was fined $100,000 for his remarks about the lockout. Despite other owners being fined for similar comments, it seems like Jordan should have avoided making any remarks. While the NBA always maintained that fighting between teammates wouldn't be allowed, it wasn't until the 2000s that fines increased to discourage fights before they happened. After a major brawl involving Ron Artest in 2004, the league faced another serious fight 2 years later that was almost as crazy. In a basketball game between the New York Knicks and the Denver Nuggets, things got heated during the last few seconds. Marty Collins, a player for the Knicks, made a rough foul on J.R. Smith, who used to play for the Nuggets. This caused a big argument between them. Then, Nate Robinson, who's not very tall, grabbed J.R. Smith and yelled at him, starting another fight. Nate even pushed J.R. into the crowd. Meanwhile, Carmelo Anthony, another player for the Nuggets, punched Collins and knocked him down. Jared Jeffries from the Knicks tried to fight back against Carmelo, but someone tripped him. After all the fighting, the referees kicked out a total of 10 players from both teams. Unlike a famous fight involving a player named Artest, this time no fans were involved. But the fines for this fight were really big, much bigger than the ones for the artist fight. The players who were suspended missed a combined total of 47 games, and both teams had to pay $500,000 as a punishment. This fight didn't help the NBA's image, especially since they were trying to improve it after the artist incident. People say, a team is only as good as its weakest player, but sometimes, teams do strange things to get better players. In 1999, the Minnesota Timberwolves got in trouble for illegally signing Joe Smith, who was a promising college player. Joe had been the first overall pick in the NBA draft in 1995 and played for the Golden State Warriors. He did well for them, but he wasn't as amazing as some other first-round picks. In 1998, things went downhill for his career when he got traded to the 76 ERs. After the notorious 1999 NBA lockout, he became a free agent. Despite a not-so-great stint with the 76 ERs, the Warriors offered him a contract worth over $10 million. The Timberwolves also showed interest, but were only willing to pay a bit over $1 million for a year. However, there was a condition. If he kept signing one-year deals with the Wolves, they promised him a much higher contract later on. These sneaky promises violate NBA rules on team salary caps. The Wolves, fully aware of this, still signed him with the assurance, and surprisingly, it didn't raise many eyebrows among NBA fans. The situation took a turn when NBA agents Eric Fleischer and Andrew Miller ended their partnership. Miller, holding contracts for both Kevin Garnett and Joe Smith, ended up in a legal dispute with Fleischer. The lawsuit brought to light all the secret agreements Smith had with the Wolves. When NBA officials found out, Commissioner David Stern took strict action against the franchise. The Wolves were fined $3.5 million, lost their first-round picks for 5 seasons, and Smith's contract was nullified, making him a free agent once more. This incident became a stark example of the consequences for breaking NBA rules on the salary cap, emphasizing the league's commitment to fair play and transparency. In the year 2000, Smith, who was then a free agent without any restrictions, joined the Detroit Pistons. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Timberwolves had the challenging task of rebuilding their once highly esteemed but now damaged team. This proved to be a significant factor that hindered Kevin Garnett's remarkable career with the Wolves from achieving success in the playoffs. The absence of first-round picks and cost-effective contracts, which Smith received, left the Timberwolves to fend for themselves. Timberwolves executive Kevin McHale openly discussed the situation after getting caught, admitting, "I haven't read a contract for 4 or 5 years. There are 8 to 10 teams that do this all the time. They're just good at it. We're bad." Despite this admission and the consideration of suspending Timberwolves executives, no one faced suspension. However, it was a glaring error as they took a significant risk for a player who, in the end, only worsened their situation. If you enjoyed this sports update, please consider subscribing to our channel for more exciting content.